I'm Dr. Rena Koesler. I am a professor here at Longwood University in the process of retiring.
Okay, so how did you come to be at Longwood?
Okay. Well, let's see. In 1986, I was looking through the Chronicle of Higher Education, which is the sort of the newspaper for, at that time, newspaper because there weren't any things online and there was no web and there was no www. So everything was either via mail or in paper. So there was a job posting at Longwood College looking for someone to teach recreation courses and a couple of outdoor education courses. I've never taught an academic class in my life, but I looked at the content of the classes and I thought, I could probably teach those things. I know the content of those kinds of subjects, so I applied. And it was end of July, and classes started in August, and I got the job. So I moved from Texas to Virginia, and in less than a week, I was standing in front of my first academic class, teaching recreation administration. That was a handful. So it was a one-year appointment, and I thought, well, I'm going to do my best for 1 year, and decided that while I was here, I would try to attempt to build a ropes course, which is my background in outdoor education, and I thought, well, I can't teach any of these other classes without a ropes course. So in the summer of 1987, along with another friend from college with William and Mary, I built a ropes course with several low elements and a couple of high elements. And then I realized that I was hired for the next year, and that 1 year appointment turned into 3 years, turned into 5 years, turned into 30 years. So here I am, 30 years later, and about to retire. So that's, in short, how I got to Longwood. So, over the 30 plus years that I've been here, my passion and my main interest has been in outdoor education. And I think Longwood is very fortunate to have an area where we can teach our outdoor education classes, not in a classroom, but in an outdoor setting. And it's a place called The Cabin, which is near the Longwood House and near the once Longwood Golf Course. And that's where the ropes course was built. So I've been fortunate to have all my classes out at the outdoor education area next to the cabin, where there's some picnic tables, and that's where we would teach orienteering and ground school for rock climbing and fire building and outdoor cooking and knots and all sorts of outdoor education activities, initiatives, and those team building kinds of activities. So it's been a great time. And again, I think Longwood's been really fortunate to be able to have classes that are taught out there. So students would travel about 1.5 miles from Longwood and take all their classes out there. And it would seem to them as if we're far, far away from campus, and it was actually being in the natural environment in an informal setting allowed for students to just relax. And I had the luxury of getting to know students as people rather than just a student in a classroom. And so throughout the 30 years, one of my favorite classes to teach was the Leadership Development through Wilderness Pursuits class. And that's where students would go on a weekend rock climbing trip and a weekend backpacking trip, and then toward the end we would have an evacuation simulation of backcountry medicine and evacuate a victim or two across a Tyrolean traverse in this raging river at the ropes course. And for those of you who will ever see this, know what that was. So I would say the most memorable moments have been on those trips. We've endured temperatures down in the teens, 12 and 13 degrees, and snow, and a lot of students who have been misplaced. I never say that they're lost, but misplaced, where we were worried for several hours of where they could be out in the wilderness. And navigating our way down a trail and across the St. Mary's River, and dressing up at Halloween oftentimes, and that was one of the protocols, and having our banquets on one of the nights where everybody brought a dish to pass in your cooking groups. And I would have to say, I am fortunate to say there's, out of 30 years of teaching that course, there's never been an injury. We did have somebody who had a sprained ankle because he put his foot on a log as he was hiking down the trail and jumped on it and twisted his ankle when he did that. So knock on wood, out of all the rock climbing trips and all the backpacking trips, no injuries. And every student that I took out on these trips came back. And so everyone was sure that they would find on their equipment and clothing list, making sure that they bring snicky snacks. Snicky snacks were important to keep our energy up on these adventurous trips. And in the later years, I would often call groups Mohegans. And I would always wonder where the Mohegans were and when the Mohegans are arriving and where the Mohegans are going to be. So if you're listening to this, you will remember the Mohegans and the sticky snacks. So those are so many great, amazing, memorable moments. I have loved my ride here, and I would have to say that students are the ones that taught me to be better and do better, to be challenged and to continually keep up with my area of expertise. And my goal has always been to try to make them better and not to stay in their comfort zones, but to actually move out of their comfort zones and to stretch themselves in many, many ways, and to know what it means to be afraid of something so that you can overcome that fear, to be better in the future, so that when that transfers to everyday life, you can actually go back to that first time you went rappelling off of the cliff at Stony Man Cliffs, or that first time that you jumped off the pamper pole at the ropes course, or the first time you got to the top of a rock climb and the exhilaration that you felt when you got to the top. All that transfers to everyday life. And so hopefully that you keep that in your memory bank, you that are listening to me in the video. Keep that in your memory bank so that you remember those times, so that you can say, you know what, I jumped off that pamper pole and it's just like jumping off into that next career choice or that next phase of your life that's going to be challenging, but unless you jump off, you'll never know what that's like. And there'll always be people around you to support you, just like they did when they belayed you or supported you and encouraged you along the way. So, it's been a blast. So thank you, who's ever listening to this, because I've had a blast too. And I look forward to the next adventure of my life, when I'm going to continue to hike and climb more mountains and move out west. And you're all, who's ever listening to this, will remember how much I love the West. So it's no surprise that I'm moving out to Colorado. I'm going to have a good time out there. So, what else?
Do you want to talk about the minor in outdoor education a little bit?
Yeah, the minor was something that was developed in 1999, and there were so many students who were taking these classes, classes that I developed along the way because, again, this is my passion, my interest, and it's something that I just wanted to do. So eventually, all those classes were developed into an academic minor of 21 credits. So students could either take the adventure programming class, the leadership development through wilderness pursuits class, the ropes course class, the adventure skills class, which is whitewater boating and orienteering and rock climbing, and they could also take the environmental education resources class, and then sort of top it off with either a wilderness first responder course or advanced first aid course. So collectively, that ensured that students would graduate here with a good set of skills and understanding about the environment once they graduated. And if they wanted to go into the field of the Park Service or wilderness therapy or leadership development in some way, that they could capitalize on the courses that they took that would transfer into those areas of interest. So it exists today. I'm really proud of it, and probably have graduated about 100 students if I can calculate that correctly. It doesn't sound like a whole lot, but in a minor program, that's pretty significant. So it's been a good time.
And then, do you want to talk about the renovations of the cabin a little bit too, since you had some involvement?
Those students who took took classes knew that we always had the cabin in case it poured down rain or something like that. But the cabin back in the day wasn't heated and didn't have air conditioning. And there was a bathroom that was inside, and it was really dilapidated. The floor, it was uneven, and there were holes in the walls of the cabin. Well, when President Finnegan was hired, one of the first things that I had inquired about is to see if he would be willing to provide some funds to renovate the cabin so that it would have a heating and cooling system and even out the floor and maybe build another bathroom outside. So I think it was in 2008, something like that, maybe 2009. Voila, the renovations of the cabin occurred. And now, because it was so iconic to Longwood and it wasn't being used because it was considered dilapidated and maybe unsafe, although in outdoor education we like those kinds of risks, so we use it anyway. But once it's been renovated, then clubs and organizations across the campus have now used it and really capitalized on that environment and using the fireplace and just enjoying being out in a wooded area. So the cabin's really a neat place to go and have events and gatherings. It's no longer mine anymore. In other words, it belongs to other clubs and organizations now. Okay, I'm looking at you.
Yeah, I think,
I'll talk about my international trips.
Yeah,
We
sure.
can't forget our international trips. Well, a total of 7 international trips that I've been involved in. 6 of them I have planned. 1 I assisted in. But I have taken groups to Nepal 3 times, Patagonia, Chile 1 time, Africa, Kenya and Tanzania twice, and then South Africa is where I assisted on a program just 2 years ago. And I also took a group to Ireland, in Northern Ireland, starting in Dublin and going north. So that's been a blast too. I love to travel, and I love hauling students along with me for those adventures because I get so much education and interest out of that, and learning about other cultures and other climates and other ways of living and foods. You can only do that when you travel, particularly in off the beaten path kinds of places. So all of those places have been off the beaten path except for perhaps Ireland, which is more westernized, and South Africa is fairly westernized too. But Nepal, Patagonia, those places are off the grid, and I think that's where students learn the most from those places. And we traveled to Everest Base Camp, we climbed Mount Kilimanjaro, we have done the Torres del Paines National Park down in Patagonia, climbed a volcano down there. So in all my adventure trips, we've climbed a mountain of some sort. And that's because I like climbing mountains, and I drag those other students with me to climb those mountains too. So that's been a great ride too. I have done other things along with other these outdoor education things, but those are the highlights. Those are the big things. Those are the things that I was most passionate about, and I think that will be my legacy, if there is such a thing, is the outdoor education things. My area's been working in therapeutic recreation, but I've been the generalist in therapeutic recreation, teaching the group dynamics class and the foundations of leisure class and the administration class and the rec leadership class. And those have been a lot of fun too, and it's been such a reward to be a part of the therapeutic recreation program. But my passion has been always outdoor education. So again, if you're listening to this, that will be no surprise to you.